Hello everyone and welcome back to A Kupel Books. This is Kupel as per usual, and today we are going to be discussing a LitRPG book, which I'm excited to share with you guys. So, it is called Moon Wars and it's by Bellow. So with that, let's get started. So, to begin, what is this book even about? I'm going to go into a little bit of a plot summary with you guys right here, right now. And it's going to have slight spoilers just in order to basically introduce you guys to what's going to be happening in the story without spoiling anything too major, okay? So that's how we're going to start, and then we're going to move into some of the things I liked about the book, some of the things I didn't like about this book, and then recommendations. With that, let's move into the book. It is the year 1999. So, for those who are a little bit nostalgic about the late 90s, this book's for you. It's 1999, and we follow our main character, Alex. Alex is a sophomore at Ohio University, and at Ohio University, he is your standard student, doesn't really go to class because he's possibly too busy playing video games. However, instead of playing your Skyrims or your Witchers, he is playing some RTS, real-time strategy games. Think building armies and sending them off to battle, but you have to do it strategically while also mining resources in order to basically sustain your army and the end goal through battle of attrition or battle of force, winning the game. And so he's really obsessed with these types of games. So much so that he doesn't really go to class that often, unfortunately for Alex. Bad life choices, Alex. And we start off during one of Alex's roommates' house parties. And there's a party raging downstairs, but where's Alex? I'll let you guess. I won't let you guess, actually. I'll just tell you. He is sitting in his room playing another RTS game. And while he's playing this game, he hears somebody come into his room, but he's so enveloped he can't even bother to look. And who does it end up being? But it ends up being our second main character of the story, Haley, the romantic love interest / epic gamer. Haley walks in and sees that Alex is playing a RTS game and decides to maybe drop a few hints in his ear. He ends up employing those hints to his success in winning the game. So, as you can see, stars align. Obviously, this is the perfect girl for Alex, based on the very little information we know about it. It ends up actually kind of working out, and they do so well in the game, in fact, that these two people end up attracting the interest of someone that we don't actually meet in real life or in person, but someone that we are hearing about and reading their messages coming through the computer screen. Their name is Q. Q has a proposition for Alex, saying that there's this hybrid new game out that he's yet to release, and it's called Moon Wars. And it has the RTS features of the games that you enjoy based off Alex's performances, and there's a little RPG before then. And he's asked if he can send Alex a computer with the game on it so that he can play. Remember, this is 1999, so we're not talking about tiny little computers, okay, with big cell phones. Okay, we're talking about the age of big phones and also big computers. And Alex says, sure, why not? Give it a try. So Q sends over this package with the computer in it. Alex can't wait to try it out. Alex ends up opening the box and seeing that this is a pretty intense game that he has on his hands, because it's not just an RTS game, but there's also this larger RPG moment to the game that's extremely vital in order to basically be able to be successful in the actual war strategy game at the end of the story. And so he ends up playing it. Haley ends up joining him on several occasions as they work through this game. Now, what is this game exactly? Basically, it is a countdown style game where you have 48 hours to capture 12 moon bases on the moon. And each base that you conquer will give you different abilities / troops in the RTS, the wartime strategy, the real-time strategy game at the end of the game. That makes sense. Yes, exactly. So, for example, if you go into the moon bases and you don't conquer all of them, you might not have all the troops necessary to win at the RTS game at the end. If you do not, for example, get seafaring base on the moon when you're playing the moon RPG part of the game, then when you go to actually play the war game at the end, you will not be able to do anything with the rivers, lakes, seas, oceans around you. Make sense? Fine. They end up playing this game, and while they're playing this Moon Wars game, working through it to win, they're realizing that this is an extreme challenge. Not only are the moon bases extremely difficult for them to beat, but as well, on top of all that, is the fact that they are being constrained by this time. And this is not like, oh, you pause the game so the timer stops. No. They have to play continuously for 48 hours in order to utilize all the time that they have. Eventually, while playing this game and struggling through these Moon War bases, they end up finding a secret message. Who sent this message? We don't exactly know at the time. We don't really know who it's from, but it appears to be schematics. And these schematics speak about digitizing a real-life person into a video game. What do? They download these schematics, and Haley says that she has a contact for them from the professors at the university that they attend. And so they send up this information up the ladder. A professor gets back to them and basically says, yes, it's possible, and let's do it. So they end up digitizing themselves through the professor's handiwork, and they end up going into a actual real-life Moon Wars game session where they have 48 hours to beat the game, get all the war bases, and win the war at the end of the game with the enemy, against the enemy, I should say. That's the premise of the story, and I think that's pretty much everything I can tell you to entice you into it without giving away too many spoilers that you wouldn't want to read the book anyway. So I think I'm going to stop there, except for letting you guys know that in order to get out of this now digitized game that they've gotten themselves stuck into, they need to win the game. And by win the game, I mean they need to win the war at the end of the game. And these players that they met once they entered the Moon Wars game digitally, they have all been stuck there for countless games, playing them time and time again, trying to get out, but they've been unsuccessful as of yet. So, there we go. That's pretty much the summary. Now, I feel comfortable moving on into the things I really enjoyed about this story. What did I enjoy about Moon Wars? Moon Wars was actually a really interesting book for me because I've read many LitRPG books set in a fantasy world, and this is one of the few science fiction fantasy games that I've read. So that, first of all, was just refreshing to read. Second of all, it was so not focused on the actual adventuring plot that you typically see in LitRPG, where you're traveling to new places, you're meeting new monsters, you're beating new monsters, you're getting your butt whooped by new monsters. It's not so much that. Instead, this is a book that's heavily focused on strategy, which I felt was refreshing. Instead of conquering new lands and beating even better monsters and focusing on building up your strengths, this book is much more about how to approach a problem in order to be successful at beating that problem, and them having to repeat the process over and over and over again to basically get the best outcome. It's a struggle, it's not easy, and that forces them to strategize. And instead of just getting stronger and leveling up, they actually have to think about what they're doing and how to best approach this problem. That was a really refreshing take on a lit RPG book, at least I felt, because I haven't read too many books where strategy was a main component of it. So for that was really fun to read. Next, I really am intrigued by the implications of the story. I felt like there was just like with Y2K coming, meaning that, for those who do not know, in the year 1999, people were freaking out that the world was going to end in 2000. Don't ask me, they were freaking out. I was alive for it, but I don't remember it, and it was a thing. So I'm just kind of intrigued by it, and I also feel like Paul Bellow's choice to make it during that time is no coincidence. So I'm just slightly wondering what the implications were, but anyways, that's neither here nor there. I don't even know why I brought it up. Moving on. That's the main thing I liked about it. I also enjoyed the fact that there were the typical lit RPG elements that I enjoy in a story. There was indeed leveling up with skill points to be distributed across the character, and as well, I enjoyed the team building collaboration that had to take place once they were in the Moon Wars game digitally, and they actually had to interact with these players who've played this game countless times. I felt that there was actual struggle involved, and there was some discussion, and it overall just felt very real to me. That's part of the story. Now, things I didn't like about the book. I felt that Paul Bellow might have relied a little too much on plot conveniences to progress the story, which I can understand. It's a fast-paced novel. From the time of him getting the game to the time of the end of the book, I don't know exactly how long it is, but I'm guesstimating it's like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. So it's a really fast-paced book, and because of that, it felt like there were like some things that just kind of happened too easily in order for this to happen. So, for example, the romance between our main character Alex and our secondary character Haley. It didn't feel real. Does that make sense? If what I'm saying, it didn't feel genuine. It felt a little insincere. And I think that's probably because Paul Bellow wanted to establish the characters and then just push them and get us along the storyline. But I felt it was like a little too forced where it just didn't feel supernatural to me. And because of that, I wasn't super in love with their romance that was bubbling throughout the story. I just was kind of like not buying it. As well as that, speaking more on the plot conveniences, there was one instance where in order to get into the game Moon Wars, they had to digitize themselves, and they brought schematics to their professor. And the professor just seemed a little too gun-ho about it and building the machine for them to get them into the game. It just felt like a little too convenient, and I was just like a little like scratching my head about it. I've never met a professor that would just be willing to kind of build something for me on this scale, nor would they be able to do it with no money to purchase the equipment. Like, it just felt a little bit too convenient to get them actually into the game. But understanding that, it was all so that we could actually see them within the Moon Wars game. So I'm willing to let it slide because I understand, Paul Bellow, you are establishing our characters, you're establishing our world, and now you need to actually get us into the game. I completely comprehend and understand why these decisions were made to get us there. So overall, very few complaints, except for those, which I know some of them are going to really bother people, which is why I'm letting you guys know. I'm not letting you guys know to say don't pick up the book. I'm letting you guys know because if you want to enjoy the actual game part of this book, you're going to have to accept those few things. At the end of the day, would I recommend this to people? Yes. Now, more specifically, this is definitely a book for those who kind of been reading LitRPG for a while and you're looking for something new. Maybe you've read some sci-fi LitRPG, you've read the fantasy LitRPG time and time again, and you're just looking for something that's like not so the same. This is going to be your book for you because I felt really refreshed reading it because I've not yet read a strategy LitRPG book where strategy was the core focus of it and strategy was basically the theme of the story and how to best beat it. You know, normally it's much more about the battle scenes and these epic fights and these leveling up and these finding these amazing loot in dungeons. It's not about that, okay? It's not. This is much more about how to approach these bases, and so much so that honestly there were times where Paul Bellow would skip over parts of the dungeons, certain floors, so that we didn't have to go through the monotonous, repetitive cycle of going through these bases, and instead basically letting us enjoy seeing how the strategy that they've chosen played out. And I really enjoyed that, and I thought that it was artfully done, and he made the book not repetitive, which I was honestly really scared of once I got into the game and I realized what was happening. I realized that this could easily fall into a repetitive category. I honestly did not feel like this book was at all repetitive because Paul Bellow expertly woven in enough of what was happening and left out enough that it didn't feel like anything. It felt like every single time we read them playing the game that it felt different. And I thought that was expertly done. If you're looking for a sci-fi lit RPG book that's a little bit different than what you've been reading, or if you are kind of tired of the fantasy lit RPG and you're looking for something a little more fresh, or if you're just a sci-fi kid who really just wants a new book, I thankfully think that this is one that you're going to be able to enjoy. And especially if you're really into the actual element of a strategic approach to video games, this is going to be the book for you, and I would highly recommend it. So with that, I think that's pretty much everything for Moon Wars by Paul Bellow. Yeah, overall, enjoyed it. Had some issues with it, but nothing so insane that I wouldn't recommend it. So thank you guys so much for being with me today. I'll see you guys later, but while you guys are commenting whether or not you're going to pick up the book, please leave a like and a subscribe if you haven't already. It just would make me feel so good to eventually get up to 300 subscribers, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye now.